I'm Taylor Gordon and I'm a senior, but I did this paper last year while I was in biology. I decided to do my paper on borderline personality disorder, but more specifically the treatments for borderline personality disorder. I became interested in this topic because, well, after seeing the movie Girl Interrupted, because the main character, one of the main characters, has borderline personality disorder, and still today it's one of the disorders that not much is known about it. It's used as almost a wastebasket diagnosis. So because they don't really know what the term borderline actually describes, because it shares so many characteristics with various disorders as well as, so it's really difficult to identify, and differentiate between the various disorders. And also, it doesn't have a treatment that's 100% effective. So that's why I decided to do my paper on the efficacy of the various treatments to see which one was the most successful in treating borderline personality disorder. First, I found general press articles about borderline personality disorder, about personality disorders in general, and then I decided to focus in on the treatments, and I researched the various treatments, and the treatments that I did were pharmacotherapy, integrated therapy, cognitive behavioral therapy, hospitalization, psychodynamic therapy, and psychoeducation. And I looked at, because there were so many different factors in the study that were examined between them, I looked for common measures in all of them and found out that most of the studies compared symptomology, suicide and self-harm episodes, and inpatient admission statistics. So I decided to compare those different factors because they were, in common across all the studies, and it was easier to focus on than just the specifics for each of the studies. And I did find that no one therapy was 100% successful in treating borderline personality disorder, but each therapy was successful in treating specific aspects of a personality disorder, like the cognitive behavioral therapy was more successful in treating suicidal and self-harm episodes than, say, the psychoeducation was, but no one therapy was really successful in eliminating the disorder, only in, limiting the, symptoms and statistics rates of the studies. One thing I found difficult to do in this research paper was comparing the studies, only because there were like 40 or 50 different measures used in each study that the researchers used to measure how effective the therapy was, like different psychological tests and different measures, and some shared some in common with others, but others, were only specific to that particular study. So I think the most difficult was having to organize them all and find out what was, in common in all of the studies, and which ones I could use, because it's almost impossible to compare something if you're not looking at the same measures across the same study. So, if suicide rate is the only thing that someone's talking about in a study, you obviously can't compare, the symptom improvements in symptomology. So I had to find studies that, had common threads so that I could be able to link them when I had to in the analysis part of the paper. Well, I learned a lot because all I really knew about borderline personality disorder was from what I had seen from the movie. And I found out like a lot of information about, how much it has in common with other disorders, and how most people with borderline personality disorder have many other personality disorders as well as other types of disorders, and how untreatable it actually is. And it's almost like, you can't just treat it with a drug or a therapy. It's something, you have to deal with and learn to cope with, which I think is really important, because most like psychiatrists and are really hesitant to work with people who have borderline personality disorder because so little is known about it, because they're not really sure what the causes are, and they can't find a 100% successful treatment. So I think it's important to, learn more about each of the different therapies, because otherwise, there's going to be nobody to be able to treat the disorder if no one wants to, learn more information about the topic in general. A lot of the information is false in the movie. Like in parts of the movies, they give like overviews, like they say definitions of what borderline personality disorder is, but a lot of it is what was once said about borderline personality disorder, but that is now not true. Like they used to say that borderline personality disorder was on like the borderline of psychosis and neurosis, because it had like characteristics of both, but they found out that it's not. That's incorrect. It's not on that borderline. And in the movie, it is. It is said that it is, and also some of her symptoms weren't symptoms that I found shared within borderline personality disorder patients and individuals, and they also didn't like in the movie they showed they didn't really show any treatments. They just did just regular therapy, and she wasn't like, I guess she didn't respond. They wanted her to respond in a way that showed that she was 100% better and didn't have the symptoms that she was showing before. But the problem is with borderline personality disorder is you're stuck with, you can't outgrow the, personality disorder. It's something you have to learn to deal with, and that you can learn to, monitor and obviously keep to a minimal the symptoms of it, but it's not something, you can get therapy or treatment for and it just goes away. And I think that the movie was almost trying to show that not only with borderline personality disorder, but the other disorders that the characters had in the movie. I think one of the big things that was really important that I learned was just how to look at studies and analyze them and look for specific information, because if a study is 40 pages long, you don't want to sit there and just read the entire study, because you're not going to learn anything, because there's going to be, terms you don't know every other sentence. So, just learning how to read studies and then summarize them was really helpful, because you're obviously going to have to use that later on. And also just the process of writing a research paper is really helpful, because in college, you'll have to write research papers, and Mrs. Schmidt told us that many people go to college and they don't even know how to write a research paper. So, now I'm one step ahead of everybody else, because I know how to write a research paper, and I've gone through the process and know that you can't just leave it to the last minute, to complete, because it obviously requires a lot of work to put into it to get the finished product. Yeah, I think it was worthwhile to do. While it was a lot of work, I think the end result, I was proud of the end result, and I got to learn a lot about something that I wouldn't have probably learned about had I not done a research paper on it. So it was good to, learn more about something that was new to me and that I wouldn't have come across had I not done a research paper on it. My advice would probably be to definitely pick a topic you're interested in, because if you don't, you're not going to be able to sit there and read all the information that you have to read for it, because it is a lot of information, and if it's not something of interest to you, then it's going to be, a chore to do the work that you need to do for it. And another piece of advice would have to be don't leave it to the last minute, because I know some people did, and they're sitting up and you can't write a 30 page paper in a night. It's not possible. And a lot of people left the work to the last few days, and I think if you just followed the steps and the times that they set for us, it was really a fair gauge for time. And also it wasn't hard to meet the goals because of the amount of time and assistance that they provided us with, and that they were so open to helping us to complete, that it wasn't that we didn't have enough guidance or help to complete it. It was more of, I guess, the motivation to complete it that I think is important. So if you're not motivated for your topic, then obviously it's going to be very difficult to complete the paper on it.